On three. Where's Go Rock? They say the best way to experience a country, but don't come back, it's your fault, is to dive right in. And after a few tentative moments,
where are the lifeguards?
My clifftop companions are ready for their very own Bali high.
Okay, let's go.
From the moment you step off the plane, it's a sensory overload. From the sweaty chaos of the streets to the air-conditioned luxury of the resorts. Here, designer stores compete with pushy street hawkers. It's a grand bazaar of sights, smells and sounds, framed by Bali's famous beaches with some of the world's best surf. They call it the Island of the Gods. Exotic, enchanting. And it's easy to see why close to 1 million Australians journey here each and every year. But there's another statistic that you won't find in the guidebooks, and that's the number of Australian deaths. Last year it was 1 every 9 days. That's close to 1 a week. Now, a lot of it's from misadventure, drug overdoses, drownings, bike accidents. But there's a far more sinister side to this beautiful place. The robberies.
And that's when they pulled a gun on me.
The shocking rapes.
I thought, I'm going to die now.
And the murders.
She'd been stabbed 37 times.
Tonight, Bali as you've never seen it.
It's loud, it's dirty, it's dangerous, and if you don't understand those basic things and you come here expecting it to be like Australia, you're going to get burned.
How would you describe her personality for someone who hadn't met her?
I think they'd take an instant like to her. She just had a lovely, pleasant nature, outgoing, bubbly personality, and she was like a little fairy.
But Heidi Murphy was to die terribly, in a frenzied and unbelievably callous attack in the place she so dearly loved.
What do you think will be your strongest memories of her?
That she was my daughter.
It must be hard for any parent to lose a daughter, but to lose her in that way must be awful.
Well, I was very sad when she just went away on holidays. So, you know, it's certainly pretty tough when you lose them forever.
Heidi's murder is not an isolated one. Queensland surfer Mark Ovenden was killed in a brutal and mysterious attack. One Bali police seem unlikely to solve, and Australian authorities are only too happy to ignore.
There was no assistance at all. If they could have provided an interpreter to help us, made a phone call to see if we were okay, steered us a little through the maze in our shock and our grief, that would have been very helpful.
But the real Bali story goes much deeper.
Welcome to Horizon, HLK as they call it. This is Block B, where all the foreigners stay.
A shadowy world where sometimes it's hard to know who's the criminal and who's the victim.
Oh mate, I was set up big time, without a doubt.
We'll take you inside the feared Korobakan prison, where you'll see for the first time what it's really like for Australians behind the razor wire.
Maximum security building, so it's called Wismar Bougainville.
The drugs.
Hello, Nuristan, what you doing?
The weapons. The wild parties.
Get out the way, you pelican!
And just what it takes to stay alive.
It's just not real in there. It was just too crazy and too far-fetched to even be real.
And down here is where we sleep. That's the mattress there.
Weed, heroin, They get in somehow.
This is my ganja. Oh, my ganja.
Like you knew they were going to get stabbed, you knew they were going to get smashed. The aftermath is just the guard standing there with whoever laying on the ground.
It's a Bali far removed from the cocktails and postcard sunsets that our Bondi party girls, Jackie and Anita, have come to enjoy.
So, I've been thinking I've got a pretty good job and you guys are having a good holiday.
Yeah. About that. Yeah.
So give me a list of the highlights.
Cliff jumping, that was something I'm terrified of heights. You couldn't tell by me climbing up the ladder.
Yeah, but you survived even though you made me go first.
Yeah, I know, and then we had to get the Thai massage to recover. I think my mum will be glad when I get home in one piece, that's for sure.
Bali is all about the beaches. And down on the shores of Padang Padang, the sunshine and salt water help ease the pain of another big night.
We should try surfing.
Yeah, no, that would be good for a laugh.
For the more energetic, it's Bali's waves that are the big attraction. They're powerful, hollow and very fast. And surfers come from all over the world for these famous and dangerous reef breaks. Surfers like Mark Ovenden.
Mark was kind and generous. He lived life, he loved life. He loved his family and his friends, and he had many friends. He loved to travel. His passion was the ocean and surfing.
Mark, from Queensland's Sunshine Coast, was in Bali for a 2-week holiday when he was savagely murdered in a mysterious crime, seemingly without motive.
I came home from work on a Thursday evening and about 6:30 the phone rang.
The call was from Mark's ex-girlfriend in Bali, and the news wasn't good.
She said, Mark's been in an accident. He's in hospital. He's in hospital in Denpasar. I went to the hospital, but he's not there. And as I started to say, who told you this? The phone went dead, just cut out. Within half an hour, my daughter and son-in-law rang me from the Sunshine Coast, and some friends of Mark from some surfing friends had heard from other surfers in Bali that Mark had actually been killed.
Mark was last seen alive at about 7 p.m. on the evening of June 19 last year. He'd set out from his villa to pick up a surfboard, but he never made it. His body was found by a farmer near Kuta village. Mark had horrific head injuries, but strangely his scooter was still upright. And despite overwhelming evidence of foul play, detectives were strangely reluctant to accept the obvious.
They still kept insisting it was a motorbike accident, and Mark's friend who was with us, who had travelled with Mark, who had seen his body, very strongly told them that we knew that this was no accident, that Mark had been murdered.
His final resting place on this dirt track was a lonely one, and at first police thought they had just another scooter accident on their hands. But the autopsy, it revealed something else. The cause of death was strangulation. His windpipe had been crushed. Further confusing things, his watch, rings and a wallet full of cash was left with him. Police now have one more murder mystery on their hands.
I felt frustrated from the beginning because where Mark was found, the scene was completely contaminated. There were people tromping everywhere over the ground. Locals, villagers. There were no forensics done. It didn't appear that they were properly investigating anything. Eventually, they agreed, yes, Mark had been strangled. That's what they told us. In actual fact, Mark had his windpipe broken by very strong force on his throat, and he was very badly beaten.
But just as frustrating and distressing for the family was the indifference of Australian authorities, especially the Department of Foreign Affairs, otherwise known as DFAT.
We were completely on our own, trying to work our way through a maze. There was no assistance at all. No help with interpreters, they don't do that. That was another answer, they don't supply interpreters. They don't supply the names of lawyers. You have to do that yourself. The only thing they did supply was the crematorium representative. Very quickly, it was amazing how fast he was in the room when we actually went to the consulate.
Okay, so watch, cigarettes, wallet.
We went to police headquarters in Denpasar to pick up Mark's belongings and try and get some answers for his grieving family.
This is basically his whole life in a few boxes. How long have they been here?
Berapa lama nih Pak?
Sekitar 1 tahun ada ya?
Yeah, almost a year.
Almost 1 year.
Almost 1 year.
All his belongings in 2 boxes. Does he think this case will get solved?
Kira-kira yakin Pak, ini akan ketahuan siapa pelakunya.
Belum yakin juga ya. Nggak tahu juga saya.
Not only has this crime been forgotten, these cops are also clueless. In the face of overwhelming evidence, they're now saying they're undecided about Mark's fate.
Okay, so I want to make sure I get this right. He's not sure if Mark was murdered.
Jadi belum yakin apakah dia dibunuh atau sakit, belum.
Iya, sementara belum.
Yeah, so far it's not really sure if he's been murdered or died because of sick.
Right, but he was found next to his bike that was upright. The death was by strangulation according to the autopsy report.
Yeah, it's been blunt force on the neck and it's also in the face.
So if the cause of death was strangulation and he had blunt force trauma to the head, why are they not sure if he was murdered?
Karena we are investigating this case until we arrest or catch the suspect.
Yeah, I doubt that, but thank you very much, sir. Terima kasih.
Sama-sama.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. These boxes clearly didn't mean much to those blokes in there, but it will mean the world to Mark's family. All his personal effects, it's bloody sad actually. Driver's license, watch, a camera, probably full of holiday photos. But while they'll have all these items, what they don't have is the answer to why he was murdered and who did it.
I don't think this is going anywhere, and possibly because we have not played the game of bribes, and I don't intend to. That may be another reason why it's just gone very cold. But I think the police know who did this.
Coming up.
That's when they pulled the gun on me.
Pointed it straight at you?
Yeah, pulled it out, pointed it straight at me.
It's Bali's most cinematic moment, sunset. And then the partying begins. Their names are legendary. Skyguard, The Bounty, Coup d'etat. Countless Australians have partied the night away in these temples of excess. Enter their doors and anything goes.
It's well after midnight and this is just one of many clubs throughout Kuta, and you can see the sort of time that people are having here. What these patrons don't understand is that they run the risk of having their bags snatched, their drinks spiked, and much, much worse.
What happens in Bali stays in Bali!
It's loud, it's dirty, it's dangerous, it's unpredictable. You know, you've got your prostitutes, you're mixing prostitutes, alcohol, people who want to do drugs, and you put all of that in one tiny strip. You know how small that little strip is in Kuta? I wouldn't go there.
Expat Claire McElhaney thought she'd seen it all in her former life as a Victorian police prosecutor. But the behaviour of Aussie tourists in Bali still surprises her.
They're called the ugly Australian, very common term. They're really tight with their money. They drink a lot.
Wedding, that's what we came here for. And now it's just turned into one mad piece up.
Which means they get into fights or arguments and they have no respect for the culture.
Just punched you in the face. Yeah. For no reason.
Yeah. Perth teenager Chad McKay was king hit by a complete stranger outside the Bounty nightclub. He didn't see it coming.
It hit him that hard that it completely split his whole lip open and we've had to have plastic surgery for it. He fell back and hit his head, he's cracked all the back of his head open, knocked him unconscious.
And when you saw him, how did you react?
Oh, I just went into mother mode basically and just did what I had to do. But yeah, of course, devastated. Devastated.
See your boy like that?
Yeah. To see this, that was given to him by somebody from Australia. It's just crazy the way they act over here.
It's not only the free-flowing booze that fuels this madness. The Kuta Strip is awash with drugs.
Speed! Oh! Speed! It's legal, no police.
Using a hidden camera, we were offered everything in the space of just 2 blocks. From prescription drugs
What is it? Viagra.
to the highly addictive
Cocaine.
and the highly dangerous.
Have MDMA, cocaine.
You can get everything on this street, can't you?
No problem, brother. See here, and no straight here. This problem.
In trouble with the police?
No.
It's the bizarre paradox of this place that while Indonesia has some of the toughest drug laws in the world, some drugs like hallucinogenic mushrooms are perfectly legal.
This is how blatant sales of drugs here on the street of Kuta. This is the main street here. These are magic mushroom milkshakes and this is a magic mushroom shop front. It's available to anyone who passes by here. The cost, about $10.
Where there's drugs and entertainment, there's crime. Bali's notorious gangs have a stranglehold on this place. They even control security at all the major nightclubs where they're a law unto themselves.
We're on a public street. You can't stop us.
Assaulting patrons, putting drugs in patrons' drinks, stealing handbags, phones, wallets, you name it, they done it.
This Australian expat who only wants to be called John knows all about the dangers of these clubs. He ran security at the biggest venue, Sky Garden.
What happens is they spike a drink. I'm not quite sure what it was, Rohypnol or whatever they use. The patron then passes out. When they come to, their watch, their phone, bag, it's gone.
Essentially, they become easier to fleece.
Easy targets, yeah.
And all the security staff were in on it?
It was just sort of, assaults, blatant assaults. When I first got there, that was happening almost every night.
John tried to clean up his own security team, sacking one of the ringleaders, but he was confronted by 40 thugs who turned up at the club on Harleys.
They said to me, "Are you such and such?" And I said, "Yeah, yes I am." And then they sort of just leashed out, punching me and attacking me.
So what was your security team doing at this point?
Yeah, good question. They're actually outside laughing, giggling and giving each other high fives. And
watching?
Yeah. And that's when they pulled a gun on me.
Pointed it straight at you?
Yeah. Pulled it out, pointed straight at me. 2 of them said, if you sack anyone else, we're going to come back and kill you. So I just, nodded my head, said, yes, I understand. And then the next day I left Bali.
With so much money to be made along the strip, gang rivalries often erupt into all-out violence, and innocent bystanders like Australian Chris Meat pay dearly.
It must be quite a wound. Do you mind showing me the scar?
Yeah.
So
that's where the blade came through.
Yeah.
I know.
So it goes right from the bottom?
Yeah, all the way up.
All the way up.
That's where I had the drain tube for a month.
So you got a permanent reminder?
Yes.
Chris and his wife Mandy love Bali. They were married here and planned to make it home with their 2 kids, Keisha and Shantae. But a late-night drink at Kuta's notorious Bounty Bar almost ended in tragedy when Chris found himself in the middle of a brawl between warring gangs.
Everybody was yelling security, people were screaming, the music turned off, and I ran straight to him and I was like, "Are you all right?" And he was like, "Yeah," and he was so angry. He's like, "Let's get out of here." He's like, "What the hell just happened?"
So at this point, you just felt like you'd been knocked over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't feel anything, I just felt like I got winded.
So you lifted up your shirt. What did you see?
Yeah, just a big hole in the stomach and some blood squirting out.
It was literally like a hose. It was just squirting out.
So what did you think at this point?
I think I was in shock. I don't think I moved from where I was standing.
Saving Chris was touch and go. The blade had pierced his small intestine, the main artery from his heart, and his pancreas. With his life ebbing away and no ambulance available, his survival came down to a frantic taxi ride through the chaos of Bali's nighttime traffic.
By that stage, she was just saying to me, "Just give the girls a hug and a kiss from me." Not what I wanted to hear.
Did you feel at that point that there's a possibility that he may not make it?
I just told him to stop being stupid. And I just kept apologising to him because it was me that wanted to go there, not him.
At Bali's main hospital, surgeons struggled for almost 5 hours to repair the shocking injuries. Mandy prepared to tell their kids the worst.
I was just hysterical. I couldn't stop crying, and by that stage he was throwing up blood and he was sweating. But he was like ice cold. He was freezing.
And at this point you've got Keisha with you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you try and explain it to her?
She knew that Daddy was there, but she didn't understand what happened.
The man who so viciously stabbed Chris was arrested, but he spent just 3 weeks in jail. An unbelievably short time, which may have something to do with the fact he's a member of one of the main Bali gangs. And the charges?
None.
Why?
It's Bali. It's all about money.
Money talks in Bali.
Yeah, money talks. Everyone's corrupt.
Coming up.
Paul's captured the bizarre world of Hotel K.
Knives, machetes, spears.
The Bali experience is many things to many people. For some, it's the tranquility and spiritualism of this predominantly Hindu island. Or the raw and confronting customs of such a colourful place. For some, like Nadine Sheehan from Bega on the south coast of New South Wales, the memories of her family holiday are vivid and permanent.
Just having a tattoo added to, actually, and having my husband's name put on.
Oh, great. I think that means you're in for life, my friend.
Well, I think so. And plus it's cheaper to get a name tattoo than it is a divorce.
Much cheaper, although harder to remove. So, what's the reason? I mean, you got a whole family here. Why'd you come to Bali?
Well, it was actually because they have the cheap flights, and it's the only way I can get my husband off the farm.
So it's easier and cheaper to come all the way to Bali than to holiday at home.
Yep, and it gives the kids the experience of seeing a different, I've forgotten the word now, different culture.
But not everybody respects the culture. And despite the many warnings and the high-profile cases, all too many Australians find themselves on the wrong side of Indonesia's notoriously harsh laws.
It may not look like much, but this is Bali's infamous Kerobokan prison. ironically nicknamed Hotel K because in reality it's a disease-ridden, dangerous, drug-fueled third world jail. Its more famous guests you already know, Schapelle Corby, the Bali 9, but in total there's almost 20 Australians locked behind those walls.
Back home there's little sympathy for many of the inmates here, but the little-known case of Paul Connebeer defies belief. He's been at Kerobokan for almost a year. His crime, an unpaid hotel bill.
Oh mate, I was set up big time, without a doubt.
Connebeer claims police demanded money for his release, a bribe that escalated to a point where he simply couldn't pay.
So it went from the original price of, I think like three grand or something, and escalated up to like 16 grand within a week. So I just said, all right, that's it, see you later. Send me to Kerobokan now. And they're like, you're crazy. I said, no, I'm not crazy. I'm sick and tired of you people raising the goalposts. I gave up on the system over there because you can't win. This is the entrance to the cell where we all sleep, so basically we're on the outside right now, so we'll just walk in there, there's 14 rooms.
Using a smuggled mobile phone, Paul's captured the bizarre world of Hotel K.
You were supposed to be out 3 months ago and then they wanted you to pay me or something.
The drugs.
Hard on drugs, but there's plenty of them available in that area.
Yeah, it seems pretty easy to get drugs in. Weed, shabu, heroin, they get in somehow and they're available.
Hello, Naristan, what you doing? Me talking to you, you talking to me.
The weapons.
Well, I've seen, knives, machetes, spears, swords, like stuff that I just think, where did this stuff come from?
The violence.
I think I've seen 3 people die through small debts, I think, like maybe over $5 for a tattoo or something like that.
Kerobokan was built for 300 inmates, but now houses more than 1,000 in cramped, stifling conditions.
Not a lot of room in here, but you've got to make do.
With people that are like murderers and rapists and pedophiles, it's too crazy. You can't have women and men in a prison together. You can't have drugs and alcohol and, hookers and all this crazy stuff going on. It's not supposed to happen that way. See these things, that's the only ventilation you've got in here is just through these bars. So any air that comes into the block either comes through the front or through the side here. The way I survived was I just hung around positive people. There's a lot of negativity in there because of people's sentences and stuff. You can't think too much in there about how long you're in there. You just got to keep yourself active. Keep your mind active, just do things during the day, talk to people, try and help people, stay out of trouble. It's pretty simple.
Inside these walls, cash is king, and a strict hierarchy is brutally enforced by the gangs that rule the prison.
I mean, people die, it's prison. I don't know what the fights are over, I don't know if it's turf war or drugs or whatever, but when it happens in a big scale, so.
Mate, I've seen, people running around here with weapons and 150 on 1 or 2, mate. It's pretty incredible, isn't it? It's just ridiculous. Yeah.
It's just a commotion that happens, like a noise. It's just this distinctive noise that they make, and then it's just a group of, maybe 150, and then they just start running, in someone's block's direction. And then there's the aftermath is just the guard standing there with whoever laying on the ground. So it's just crazy.
Not only do the guards turn a blind eye to the violence, inmates openly drink alcohol smuggled into the jail.
It was mainly just the cheap vodka they sell outside. You wouldn't drink Iraq because you wouldn't trust it, but you just get the cheap vodka, occasional beers, and it was available, not every day. But, there was just days where we'd say, look, it's been a week, I don't know, we've had a hard week, let's have a drink,
But perhaps the most brazen spectacle Connebeer witnessed inside Kerobokan was this party, where prostitutes performed for prisoners and the guards.
It was just bizarre to have girls in there dancing, and you know the girls were out there and everyone was dancing and having a good time, but it's just strange. The guys in the kitchen, Sven and Danny, they're trying to grow their own vegetables out here, but it's a bit tough because of the climate.
This is my ganja. Oh, my ganja.
You know, it's filthy. It's you know, that's just the way the prison is, you know. But you just got to make the best of the filth, and you've got to, you know, keep your nose clean, and you can get through it okay.
It was Bali's loss of innocence.
Guys, this is horrendous. I've never seen anything like it.
The 2002 bombing at the Sari Club and Paddy's Bar left 88 Australians dead and forever changed how we felt about this place.
What happened here had a profound effect on all Australians. Angered and frightened by the attacks, it seemed Australia's love affair with Bali was over and tourism numbers plummeted. Fast forward to today and the relationship is back on. Australians are coming here like never before. What's your favourite part about Bali then?
The massages. Friendly people. The people are so friendly. I've got a couple of Bali boys' numbers so far being here.
Okay, so you're shopping in these shops and they're shopping for her.
Yeah. Keep an eye on her. $10. Hell no. We can get it cheaper back home.
How do you think Australians view the Balinese?
In general, the tourists who are coming in absolutely love them. They look at them as a culture who's smiling all the time and, you know, helpful. And my friend Wayam will do anything for me. My friend Katut, he's just amazing.
Many love Bali so much they stay. Some to simply chill out, others to reinvent themselves, to start a new life or retire. Here you can find paradise on a pension.
So these are happier times, obviously.
It is, well and truly. As you can see,
with their children now adults, Perth couple Christine and Peter Rayside were planning a much-anticipated retirement in Bali. They'd fallen in love with the island on holidays and bought a beachside villa.
We absolutely love Bali. It was our second home. Get off the plane and the worries of the world leave you. We had all our friends there, a lot of really great friends there, and the lifestyle just suited us so much. We're beach people.
It was just all good fun. Really very enjoyable.
But the Bali dream ended at the hands of 4 men intent on robbery and much worse.
The villa is far away from the bustle of Kuta. Out here, there's no street lamps, there's no traffic noise, it's dead quiet. Chris was by herself, upstairs, asleep, with the family dog Sam, while Peter was back home in Australia for work, leaving her very much alone.
I must have dozed off and I heard a noise. And then next thing, I looked over at the curtains waving, and a man was standing there. I don't know what kicked in, but something kicked in, and I decided I wasn't going to struggle or panic. By this time, they'd had me on the floor at the bottom of the bed and were tying me up. They gagged me and tied up my arms and legs.
So your hands were tied behind you?
Behind me, yeah.
Sort of like hog-tied almost?
Yeah.
Then Christine's attackers covered her head with a dog blanket and tried to suffocate her.
And I really panicked then because I couldn't breathe. I thought, I'm going to die now. Then they got my head and just kept on pounding it into the ground for me to be quiet. They kept on saying to me, be quiet, money, money, money. And this man had the knife to my throat all the time, and I could feel it cutting me.
The money.
During this time, I don't know how many times I was sexually assaulted, and it's one of the things that I've had to learn to live with, why I didn't fight more then. But I had to survive. And I survived.
But Heidi Murphy's story had a different ending. Heidi had travelled the world in search of enlightenment and happiness, and she'd found it in Bali. She settled in the affluent foreign enclave of Canggu, working for a fashion business run by expats.
She loved it. She said she liked the people. It was such a quiet, easy-going. She was out in a semi-rural area. She had a really nice condo, high walls. She felt safe. Where a lot of other people that were there, they had bodyguards, you know, sort of guards around. But Heidi didn't feel the need to have that. She was such a trusting person, you know.
Just how'd she interact with the locals and?
Oh, they loved her. They loved her. And around that area, she knew everyone. She was very spiritual, and you know, a lot of the Balinese are very spiritual, but she loved them.
One evening, an exhausted Heidi returned home to her villa, turning down an invitation from friends to travel into the mountains for the weekend.
She was in bed doing some study. She had a paperwork around her. She'd gone to sleep.
The thief scaled Heidi's wall and slipped into the villa, where he tried to steal a laptop beside her bed. But Heidi woke and fought back.
She pinned him against the wall. She was only tiny, but very strong. And Rossi had a knife, and he stabbed her, I think, 37 times. Oh, I couldn't imagine what she went through. It'd be terrible, absolutely terrible. It's terrible, you know, it's so hard just in thinking about it without being the person that suffered, you know.
The killer fled on a getaway bike, taking with him Heidi's mobile phone. But that was to be his undoing. In desperation, her family contacted Australian authorities, who worked with the CIA and local police to pinpoint the phone signal.
Do you think he would have been caught if not for the involvement of Australian police?
No, I don't think so. I think they'd still be at large. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Ultimately, Ahmed Farul Rossi was sentenced to 20 years in jail. His accomplice, Nariunto bin Sudar, got 8 years. But history shows locals don't always serve the full term.
The sentence that he's got is the equivalent to, say, Chappelle Corby, who's got the same sentence for trafficking marijuana.
How can you equate that? You know, that means two ways. She should get very much less, or he should get a lot more. They're certainly not equal.
Gary, I know that you're trying to not hold on to the anger, but knowing that, surely there must be some there.
Well, I guess deep down there's probably is a bit of anger. I try not to let it affect me, but I think if you dug deep enough, there'd be plenty there.
You say that she was cremated. What was that service like then for you to see that many people?
Oh, it was wonderful. She had people from all over the world. They came. And she was such an outgoing person that she made friends very easily. You know, they just loved my daughter. It was wonderful.
Coming up.
You miss it, don't you?
For Bondi girls Jackie O'Brien and Anita Best, there's been a few surprises on their Bali adventure. But nothing that would stop them coming back.
I heard the monkeys liked you a lot, just as much as you like them.
Yeah,
maybe
we
more
love
so.
the monkeys. There may have been some screaming.
Have you ever felt unsafe?
Can I say it? I didn't even take out travel insurance. Kind of slipped my mind. Sure, like being in the wrong place at the wrong time is, you know, pure luck, I think. Back at home, I could walk out, cross the road and be hit by a bus, you know. And I think if you dread it and you fear it, you kind of bring that energy upon yourself.
This place is still an island paradise, but with all the pressure on it, the fear is it could become a paradise lost. And for some people, that happened long ago.
Come on!
The attack has totally changed the lives of Christine and Peter Rayside. Christine remains traumatised and is still undergoing counselling. There have been plenty of challenges for this loving couple.
Bali is not the place for us anymore. You know, it might be okay for others, but for us, no, it's finished.
It's just too sad. Bali had so many great memories for us, but it's got some really sad memories.
A year on, and for Chris and Mandy Meat, there are good days and bad. Chris is still in intense pain, unable to work, often unable to even walk.
And when you do have the inflammation and the pain that comes, how bad is that on your worst day?
Bad, really bad. Yeah, pretty much in bed or on the couch for a whole week.
But despite their horrific experience, Chris still loves Bali. And on a bleak Melbourne morning, you can see why.
I still love it.
I can see Mandy's not on board with this.
Yeah, I still think it's safe. I still think it's safe, genuine people, and it's unlikely for this to happen.
Yeah. I understand it's rare for something like that to happen, but I think you've just got to be a bit more careful, like where you go, who you hang around, and who you trust, I guess, too.
For Heidi Murphy's dad, Gary, it's all about trying to hold on to the happy memories. But the reality of what happened to his daughter is always just beneath the surface.
You've got wonderful photos, an amazing video.
Yes, I cherish those. I cherish those.
Do you look at them much, Gary? Or?
I look at them sometimes, you know. They don't make me sad. I just enjoy seeing her again.
Yeah. You miss her, don't you?
Why, sure.
Chris Ovenden has all but given up hope that Mark's killer will ever be brought to justice.
It was the anniversary of Mark's death last week, and we're no closer to finding out anything. So I have no faith in this being investigated at all at the moment. And they should make more of an effort to follow up on cases like this, where Australians are killed in Bali, which happens all too frequently.
Good to be out.
Paul Connebier is now a free man.
Can't wait to get home.
Korobakan is behind him, but what lies ahead is uncertain.
Take care of the boys, okay? All right. The door opened, it was like a ray of light. It was like just a big, like, you know, like an overwhelming feeling. Just a rush of adrenaline, a rush of, you know, it's just freedom.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Let's go.
For Jackie O'Brien and Anita Best, their Bali holiday ends much as it began, in the deep end.
It's quite current down there.
I know, it's really strong from here, hey?
Yeah. See much?
Beautiful. A couple of little baby fishies.
As another day slowly sinks into the ocean, our Bondi girls have come to the end of a perfect Bali break. Thankfully for them, it was the one advertised in the brochures.
What's the thing you're going to miss the most?
Maybe the cheap cocktails.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I should say
We're
on
not really
behalf of-
alcoholics.
On behalf of every barman in Bali, they're sad to see you girls go.
We haven't been that bad. Awesome. Thank you so much. Cheers. I think I'm going to miss. It sounds a little bit superficial, but living an opulent lifestyle without having to be a millionaire.